Amidst the roar of celebration, a wall of noise from hundreds of cheering families packed tightly into the university auditorium, one man's quiet dignity was about to be challenged. He stood apart, a silent figure near the back, his tall frame held with a familiar, stiff posture inside an old marine dress jacket worn over faded jeans, a stark contrast to the festive chaos of waving banners and raised camera phones. As he moved forward, seeking the seat near the front his graduating son had promised him, a woman wearing a headset intercepted his path, her voice sharp with misplaced authority. "Sir, this section is reserved," she stated flatly, her eyes flicking over his attire with disapproval. "Guests of honor only." His own voice was low, steady, though laced with the quiet pride and anticipation pulsing within him for his son's milestone. "My son's graduating. Tyler Beck. I'm on his list." But her gaze remained dismissive, her head shaking curtly. "I don't care who you are," she snapped, her tone leaving no room for discussion. "Step back now, or security will remove you." As if summoned, two uniformed guards began to approach, their presence barely registering with the jubilant crowd. However, in one particular row, the fifth from the front, a group watched the unfolding scene intently, their expressions unreadable, their silence heavy with unspoken weight. They didn't say a word. Not yet. Welcome to Veterans Voice, the channel dedicated to ensuring that stories of service and sacrifice are never forgotten. Before we delve deeper into this powerful moment, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from today. And if you believe narratives like this deserve a platform, please hit that subscribe button and join our mission to bring these vital, often overlooked voices back into the light. The man attempting to find his seat was Daniel R. Beck, a retired Master Sergeant of the United States Marine Corps. His 22 years of service included 2 harrowing tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. He carried the invisible scars of war, a third of his hearing lost to an IED blast, the memory of picking shrapnel from his own side for 6 long months, and the heavy burden of having buried more brothers in arms than he could bear to count. Yet none of his experiences, not the crucible of combat, the rigors of service, nor the quiet solitude of retirement, had fully prepared him for the emotional gravity of this day. Today, his only son, Tyler Beck, wasn't graduating from basic training or boot camp, but from college, the very first in their family lineage to achieve such a distinction. Daniel hadn't shed a tear in decades, but when the graduation invitation arrived, handwritten by Tyler himself with the simple, heartfelt words, "Dad, I want you in the front row," an unfamiliar tightness gripped his throat. He'd kept that precious card carefully folded in his jacket pocket ever since. Tyler had embodied perseverance, working 2 jobs throughout his demanding college years. He never asked his father for financial help, but his weekly Sunday calls were a lifeline, a ritual Daniel cherished. And every single Sunday, Daniel's response was the same, delivered in his unwavering, steady voice. "Proud of you, son." To be here, Daniel had driven 3 states, sleeping uncomfortably in his old truck the night before in the vast college parking lot. He hadn't requested a hotel room. He didn't want to impose or cause any fuss. His old uniform jacket wasn't worn out of vanity or a desire for recognition, but simply because it was the most respectable garment he owned. He arrived with nothing but his truck, the folded invitation clutched like a talisman, and the profound hope of witnessing his son walk across that stage. The auditorium itself was grander, more imposing than he had envisioned. Hundreds of guests filled the seats, parents impeccably dressed in suits and elegant dresses, clutching program pamphlets. Rows of chairs were neatly labeled, demarcated by plush red ropes separating the reserved seating area from the general audience. Daniel initially stood near the side wall, his eyes scanning the reserved section, searching for his name, just as Tyler had assured him. "You'll be up front, Dad, right next to my name," his son had said. Yet when he approached the entrance to this exclusive section, the usher, the same woman with the headset, barely afforded him a glance. One quick look at his weathered jacket and the lines etched onto his face was apparently enough for her judgment. She waved him off with a practiced, dismissive tone. "Sorry, sir. This area is for family." His reply was calm, measured. "I am family. I'm his father." Her response was clipped, bureaucratic. "No ID, no pass, step aside." Daniel, a man conditioned by a lifetime of following orders, didn't argue. He stepped back as instructed. But as he did, a coldness distinct from fear or shame prickled the back of his neck. He felt the averted gazes from the front rows, the subtle shifts of those dressed in their finest, none willing to intervene or question the usher's decision. In their eyes, he was merely an old man out of place, a relic incongruous amidst the polished shoes and crisp programs. He found a spot in a corner near a side door, standing silently, hands clasped behind his back, his unwavering gaze fixed on the stage. Still proud, still waiting. He remained oblivious to the intense scrutiny from the men in row 5, but they missed nothing. The ceremony commenced, a polished voice resonating over the sound system, extending welcomes to distinguished guests, esteemed faculty, and proud parents. Hundreds of eyes turned towards the stage as the assembled audience settled. Yet one figure remained standing resolutely near the fire exit, unmoving, hands folded, chin held slightly high. Daniel Beck didn't require a seat. 2 decades spent largely on his feet had prepared him for this. He didn't need a program. He knew intimately why he was there. The usher passed him again, this time accompanied by another staff member. She leaned in, whispering conspiratorially, assuming her words were beyond his impaired hearing. "Still standing there. I don't think he's even invited." The other staffer replied nonchalantly, "Just have security keep an eye on him." A few heads in the nearby rows swiveled, eyebrows arching in curiosity or judgment. The man in the faded marine jacket didn't flinch. He had stood stoically through far worse at solemn funerals, amidst blinding sandstorms, under the terrifying roar of incoming artillery. A few sideways glances were insignificant. Then, a student, resplendent in cap and gown, emerged from behind the stage curtain to deliver a speech. It was the dean's son, polished, practiced, his diction flawless. He began by thanking the families whose support made this day possible, then added, after a calculated performative pause, "Especially the presentable ones who truly represent the values we strive to teach here." A ripple of laughter followed, light, polite, but noticeably not unanimous. Daniel remained impassive, his expression unchanged. But in the 5th row, 3 men in dark suits, their military short buzz cuts barely concealed beneath civilian caps, exchanged a sharp, meaningful glance. The tallest among them leaned forward slightly, muttering under his breath, just loud enough for his companions. That was aimed at him. The others gave a single, curt nod in silent agreement. Back near the wall, the situation escalated. A security guard approached Daniel, holding a clipboard. "Sir," the guard began, his tone attempting politeness, "we've had some concerns expressed. Would you mind stepping outside with me for a moment while we verify your name on the guest list?" Daniel's response was quiet but firm. "I'm not causing any trouble. My son asked me to be here. I'm not moving until I see him cross that stage." The guard, though polite, remained insistent. "Sir, I must ask you to come with me." The whispers in the audience grew louder, more pointed. A woman near the aisle murmured audibly, "They're removing that man." Another added, sotto voce, "Honestly, his presence is making people uncomfortable." Daniel looked steadily at the guard, then let out a slow, controlled breath. "All right," he conceded, preparing to follow. No protest, no scene, just the quiet compliance of a man weary of conflict. But as he took the first step towards the aisle, a single sharp sound shattered the auditorium's low hum, the distinct scrape of a chair leg against the polished floor. Then another, and another. In the 5th row, 6 men rose simultaneously to their feet. No uniforms, no shouted words, just their imposing presence. Chests broad, eyes fixed forward, arms held rigidly at their sides. They didn't appear angry. They looked deliberate, resolute. Confused murmurs spread through the crowd as heads turned towards the unexpected interruption. The tallest of the 6 men stepped purposefully into the aisle. He walked directly towards the guard escorting Daniel, reached into his pocket, and held up a small, gleaming object without uttering a word. A Navy SEAL Trident badge. Then, one by one, the other 5 men followed suit, stepping forward, each revealing their own trident. 6 badges, 6 silent warriors. The air crackled with sudden tension. No one moved. Finally, the tallest SEAL turned his gaze upon the crowd, sweeping it slowly from face to face before speaking, his voice carrying the calm, unquestionable authority of someone who had navigated the depths of hell and emerged. "That man," he declared, his voice resonating through the now silent hall, "doesn't leave this room. He led us through hell. He's staying right here." The atmosphere in the auditorium shifted instantaneously, palpably, as if a collective realization dawned upon everyone present. They had profoundly misjudged the situation, missed something fundamentally important. The 6 men remained standing, perfectly still, their posture not aggressive but fiercely protective, imbued with a reverence reserved for a brother in arms, especially one the world seemed determined to forget. The security guards stared, bewildered, from the stern faces of the SEALs to the trident pin now resting in his hand. He took an involuntary half-step back, stammering, I didn't know." The lead SEAL offered no reply. His unwavering stance spoke volumes. From somewhere in the stunned crowd, a hushed question arose. "Who is he?" Then, another figure stood, an older man seated near the stage, his own uniform adorned with medals. His voice, though not loud, carried with distinct clarity. "That man is Master Sergeant Daniel Beck, 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion. Operation Phantom Sun, Fallujah." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "He's the only man who walked back out of that street after pulling 5 of us out under heavy fire." Audible gasps now filled the room, sharp and real. Someone in the back rows fumbled and dropped their phone with a clatter. Throughout this revelation, Daniel hadn't looked at the crowd. He hadn't moved since the 6 men stood in his defense. He simply lowered his head slightly, his jaw clenched tight. There was no anger in his posture, only a profound weariness, the exhaustion of constantly having to justify his existence, his worth. Suddenly, another voice cut through the charged silence, amplified by the speakers but utterly unplanned. It was Tyler, his son, stepping out of the line of graduates on stage, microphone unexpectedly in hand, his graduation cap slightly askew. His voice trembled initially but quickly found its strength. "That's my dad," he announced, the words echoing through the hall. Complete silence fell. Tyler walked to the very edge of the stage, his gaze locked on his father. "He never asked for recognition," Tyler continued, his voice ringing with conviction. "He never bragged about what he did. But every single morning for the past 4 years, he told me to stand tall, to keep going, and to become someone I'd be proud to look at in the mirror. Today is supposed to be about my graduation. But the reason I'm proud today is because of him. And if he's not welcome here," Tyler declared, his voice unwavering, "then neither am I." With that, he removed his graduation cap, stepped decisively off the stage, and walked down the stairs, heading straight for his father. The crowd instinctively parted, creating a path. Reaching Daniel, Tyler stood tall, chest out, and rendered a crisp, formal salute to his father. One by one, the 6 SEALs mirrored the gesture, saluting the Master Sergeant. Daniel didn't return the salute. Instead, he stepped forward and embraced his son tightly, whispering, "You didn't need to do that, son." Tyler pulled back slightly, meeting his father's eyes, his own filled with fierce loyalty. "No, Dad," he replied firmly. They needed to see it. The auditorium remained suspended in a moment far deeper than mere shock. The woman with the headset, the usher who had initially turned Daniel away, stared down at her now irrelevant clipboard, appearing suddenly diminished. Parents who had previously averted their gazes or looked past him now shifted uncomfortably in their expensive seats. Some lowered their eyes in shame, others looked up at the retired Marine with a newfound expression bordering on reverence. The man they had dismissed as an outsider, someone who didn't belong, now stood as the undeniable center of gravity in the room, a figure whose quiet presence commanded more respect than any shouted introduction could. Tyler gently led his father back towards the front rows. This time, no one dared block their path. The same usher who had waved him away moments before now stepped aside hastily, wordlessly. Daniel walked past her calmly, his pace steady, his dignity intact. He didn't require an apology. His very presence, validated by the actions of his son and his brothers in arms, had already demanded and received one in the profound silence. The 6 SEALs followed closely, taking up positions standing just behind the front row, arms crossed, silent sentinels guarding the sanctity of the moment. One of them murmured, almost to himself, but loud enough to be heard nearby. About time. The university dean finally stepped up to the podium, his face pale, clutching his prepared speech like a lifeline. He glanced nervously towards Daniel, Tyler, and the SEALs, then back at the microphone. He attempted to regain control of the ceremony, but his voice betrayed his unease. We are honored today, he stammered, to have many distinguished guests among us, including some, he added, his eyes flicking towards Daniel again, we should have recognized sooner. A few hesitant claps broke the silence, uncertain at first, then growing stronger. A wave of applause began to build, row by row, transforming from polite acknowledgement into a genuine rolling ovation that filled the auditorium, echoing not with scripted platitudes, but with spontaneous, heartfelt recognition. Yet Daniel didn't bask in the sudden adulation. He simply sat quietly beside his son, retrieved the handwritten invitation from his pocket, unfolded it, and read Tyler's words one last time before carefully folding it away again. That was all he had come for. Not the applause, not the apologies, just that seat, beside his son, in that moment. And after the formal ceremony concluded, the usual rush for the exits was replaced by a slower, more reflective dispersal. Many students, now graduates, approached Daniel as they passed. Some offered a firm handshake, others a simple nod conveying quiet respect. One mother gently placed her hand on his shoulder and whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "Thank you for raising him right." Later, as the auditorium began to empty, the 6 SEALs approached Daniel one final time. The tallest one pressed something small and heavy into his hand, a unit challenge coin. Daniel turned it over in his calloused fingers, recognizing the emblem. "You were always the standard, Master Sergeant," the SEAL said, his voice low and respectful. "We never forgot." Daniel didn't reply with words. He simply gripped the coin tightly, gave a single affirming nod, and looked towards his son. And then, for the first time that long, emotional day, a genuine smile touched Daniel Beck's lips. He had never sought the spotlight. He had never raised his voice to demand respect. He had simply shown up on time, carrying his honor and a quiet, unshakable pride that no uniform, however faded or fine, could ever fully capture or contain. And when the world, represented by the dismissive usher and the uncomfortable onlookers, tried to push him aside, the men who truly knew his measure, the men who remembered his courage under fire, stood up. They stood not because he demanded it, but because their shared history, their unbreakable bond, owed it to him. Some heroes don't require a microphone or a grand entrance. Their presence speaks for itself. They just need to be seen, truly seen, for who they are. So now I ask you, the Veterans Voice community, have you ever known someone like Master Sergeant Daniel Beck? Someone whose quiet strength and dignity might have been overlooked by the world until the silence surrounding their true worth became too profound to ignore? Share their name in the comments below. Tell us their story. Let us know what they meant and still mean to you. Because here on Veterans Voice, we firmly believe that the most powerful form of respect is the kind that doesn't need to be demanded, it's earned, and it's given freely by those who understand its value. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please share it widely. Subscribe to our channel Help us continue to amplify the voices and tell the essential stories of those who served, stood tall against adversity, and remain unwavering examples of integrity, no matter who happens to be watching.